Hello, this is Dana Gottesfeld. It's Sunday, February 23rd, and I wanted to do a reaction video to the Pelletier's verdict in their civil lawsuit coming out this week. As you might have seen, the hospital was found to be, Boston Children's Hospital was found to be not negligent in violating the Pelletier's civil rights. The lawsuit was trying to say that her parents were inappropriately separated from participating in their daughter's care, and also that the separation caused undue harm to Justina. The jury took 6 hours to deliberate before they came back with a verdict that the hospital was not negligent. From anybody who's been following the case all these years, I think there's sufficient evidence that would suggest otherwise, but I guess it's not unheard of that things can go awry in a court of law. There's so many restrictions on what can and can't be said that it really can skew the narrative. I don't know specifically what happened in this courtroom, but I can tell you from the courtrooms I've seen, it's definitely a possibility. You know, Marty and I have done a lot of due diligence on the case and seen a lot of the evidence, and it points to negligence at best. I don't know, it's disappointing. They announced this lawsuit in 2016. It's actually right after Marty was arrested, and it's taken all this time to happen, and it's disappointing. You know, they had a strong case. They collected a lot of evidence. And now, to me, the question is just like, what do you do now? What is the lesson that we can learn from watching their example? I think one of them is just to record, to document everything. You know, if you get to the stage of being in court, you're going to want as much as you can. You're going to want to explain to people. They're not necessarily going to take you at your word, so you have to have all the documentation, and maybe it won't even matter, but you should at least come with a lot. I think it also, one of the lessons to take away is that you can't rely on the government or the courts to do right by you, that you have to be responsible for your own self and family. You know, if you've never heard of medical kidnap, if you weren't aware of it, no one can blame you. But if you're watching this video, if you've been following Marty or Justina's case, like, you know now, and you should take whatever precautions you can not to stay away from that whole web. You know, the doctors that Justina's family is suing, so that's Jurion Peters, who's a PhD, Simona Bujrianu, who's also a PhD, Colleen Ryan, and Alice Newton, who's a CPS, a Child Protective Service doctor at Boston Children's Hospital, are still roaming. They're still out there doing this to other families. I've actually been contacted by families telling me about Alice Newton, saying that she's doing the same thing to their family. Boston Children's Hospital is similar to the Catholic Church in that rather than fire someone that's abused kids, they move them around. So now she's at Mass General Hospital, and families are still at risk from losing custody of their kids and having them committed as wards of the state. It sucks. I'm disappointed, maybe not totally surprised, but I don't know what else. Like, you just have to keep fighting. The answer is probably not just to lay down and take it, but to go at them harder. It takes momentum. Maybe the Pelletier's lawsuit was just cutting down some of the brush, and the next family that sues will have an easier time. I hope that's the case. I also wanted to talk about Marty. On December 9th, Marty was moved into the solitary confinement unit at the solitary housing unit, special housing unit, which is a euphemism for solitary, at the Communications Management Unit, or the CMU, in Terre Haute, Indiana. It's a really bad place. You know, I've usually describe it as a place that restricts communications, but I don't think that does it justice, because communications are restricted for all inmates throughout the Bureau of Prisons. This place blocks mail to the Office of the Inspector General, which is where an inmate can complain about, you know, rape violations or rights violations. Like, Marty can't do that. None of the inmates can do that. They can't write letters to congressmen. Mail is opened and inspected before going to the court and before coming back to the court. Like, this is just, like, beyond the pale. I actually haven't heard from Marty since April 26th, 2019. So it's, in 2 months, it'll be a year. Anyways, so on December 9th, he was in solitary. He made an emergency motion for, you know, the court to get involved. He asked for a hearing, and now it's like the end of February and the judge still hasn't ruled. This is Judge Gardef in the Southern District of New York. You may have seen Judge Gardef's name around because he just oversaw the Avenetti lawsuit. So according to a recent filing that Marty made as of January 28th or 29th, he was moved out of the SHU. He's now back in general population, but he's on a modified hunger strike. He's eating 5 meals a week. He's losing a lot of weight. He never recovered after his muscle and body mass after his last hunger strike, so the weight's coming off a lot faster this time. Yeah, it's not good. They're so vindictive there, you know. It's like everything he does is subject to retaliation. Like, there are no rules, they can just retaliate and make things up. They're taking away his good time, his commissary, his ability to use the phone, to use electronic messaging, like, and then these little hearings that they have are like a sham, so it's just really annoying. So that's kind of what's going on now. We're on the campaign side, we're continuing to raise money for his commissary because we're going to send it to him. I think he can get some food, so, although I'm not sure, but we're just going to make sure we're sending to him anyways. They're now taking out of his commissary to pay the fines imposed on him. I think they said he has to pay $400,000 in restitution to Boston Children's Hospital. So they're taking $50 out a month. So, you know, that's one stream where your donations are now going to. And also we're paying off Brandon Sample, who we're really happy to have gotten. Hopefully he'll be good. I saw that he's representing Ross Albright in something. I saw that he's the one who's asking for compassionate release for, what's his name? The guy who did, you know, the guy who, Bernie Madoff. So, I don't know. I think he writes for Prison Legal News, so I think a lot of the inmates kind of probably come across him from that. That's my guess. I don't know. Anyways, that was a $50,000 fee. We've so far paid $40,000, so that's also where money is going. Oh, sorry, I haven't been watching comments. If you're commenting, sorry, you can say something again. Yeah, so that's where things are going. That's an update. Please check out the dockets that I post. He has 2 lawsuits, one in the Southern District of New York and one habeas petition in the Southern District in Indiana. You know, you can read the conditions in the shoe. I mean, just from like bad water, they put double chains on him. They involuntarily withdraw blood. He's refused all of their medical testing, but they were continuing to do it. I'm relieved that he's out of the shoe. That place is so horrible, but I mean, just the whole situation is bad. So yeah, that was some updates. If you have more questions, please let me know. I really should stream more. I think it's probably helpful. It's probably easier than reading my posts. But you know, if you're going through a medical kidnap, if you're going through an incarcerated loved one, you can feel free to reach out to me or reach out to others. I feel like there's definitely a sense of community once you've know what it feels like or have been personally involved in seeing injustice and destruction, and it really impacts your level of compassion that you just don't want to see this happen to anybody else. So thank you for sticking with us, and yeah, take care.